This is Joel with the End of the Flow podcast, and I'm joined today with David Wilson. How's it going, David?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. So, where in the neck of the woods are you?
I am located in Western Kentucky in Murray or Callaway County, right on the edge of Tennessee, probably about 25 minutes from the border in Tennessee, about
Okay.
45 minutes from Paducah, that kind of area.
So you're probably like an hour away from me. So
A little bit over an hour,
a
actually,
little bit
from
over an hour. Okay, cool.
Madisonville.
So tell us a little bit about you. What's your background? Is your background in window cleaning, or did you come from another industry?
Well, actually, right out of high school, shoot, that was probably my first job. I was a waiter at a restaurant, and that didn't last very long. I was still doing that while I was in high school, but right when I turned 18 and graduated, I went to work actually for your dad. Subcontracted for your dad for several years. Kind of bounced around a little bit. Did some things. Went into construction for a little bit. I was a FedEx driver for about a year, so
Wow.
different things. But I've always kind of come back to window cleaning. I was a subcontractor for your dad for several years. Eventually, uh, had my own business for about 2 years, and then I sold that, and then worked as an employee for another company, and then eventually broke out on my own again. So
Okay. Wow.
several years, about 13 years of experience, going on 14 now. So
It's a pretty long time. How old are you?
33.
33. Old man. So you've been doing windows for almost half your life, pretty much, right?
It's getting there. Yeah, it's a long time. It's one of those trades that you learn, and once you get it, you just kind of, it kind of sticks with you, and you don't really forget it. So,
Yeah.
which is a good thing, I guess. So
I gotta say, I kind of envy you a little bit just because I mentioned it before, but I've done a few different jobs other than window cleaning, but this has been basically the only job I've ever had other than like a couple other things. Um,
yeah.
what's interesting though is like the other jobs that I have had, um, they've helped develop my work ethic, and they've also taught me a few different things. Like I was a server too for a very brief stint, uh, but that's like super into the customer service field. I'm kind of curious, since you've done so many different things, is there maybe skills or things that you've learned from your other from the other jobs that you've had that you've been able to implement into window cleaning?
Uh, yeah. There was a time period where I worked as a warehouse manager for a heating and air company. I did that for about, oh man, about a year and a half, maybe almost 2 years. But while I was doing that, I was also, cleaning windows and still here and there. But while I did that, I think what really was good about that job taught me to become a lot more organized in how I do things. Of course, inventory management, when you're the warehouse manager is, that's basically the job, and so that taught me to be more organized in how I do things, cleaning windows, keeping things organized in that respect, like with clients, and just always kind of staying on top of my materials. When do I need to order something else?
Right.
This squeegee rubber is going to last me for so long. When do I need to, So that was really useful, but it also was great because I dealt with customers a lot.
Yeah.
We'd have so many people would come in needing something, and I was the person that handled it. I would take them back to the warehouse and I'd get them all this stuff. So it really helped talking to people and dealing with problems and trying to find solutions to their needs. That really carried over into cleaning windows because, it's a customer service industry. So
Yeah.
you have to be nice, you have to be cordial, so that really helped kind of refine that.
How do you how do you solve a difficult situation? Um, like they always say, like the customer's always right, but there's some situations where it's like, for me personally, um, I don't want to cross the line and just be like the nice guy that gets walked over, but at the same time, I've heard these horror stories about people that own their own business, and it feels like it gives them a license to treat their customers like as expendable. They're just like,
Yeah.
they're just a paycheck. How do you manage that? Um, is that something that you kind of learned from being in the service industry before this?
Um, well, I think that there's a line. So when I was working as a warehouse manager, obviously there was no real disagreeing with the customers. I mean, that was,
Right.
I worked for someone else, but having my own business, I think there's definitely a certain type of client that you will start to recognize, um, that will ask for more and more and expect you not to charge them
Freebies.
for any more of the stuff. Right.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to recognize the type of client that you're you know um, working for. I
Hmm.
think that it helps to be able to draw the line somewhere for yourself.
Right.
You do have to stick up for yourself occasionally if there's a situation where you need to put your foot down.
Right.
Um, but for the most part, the customer is always right. I don't really agree with that. Sometimes the customer's wrong.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. Like, how do you address that without being, being perceived as getting an attitude? How do you maintain your professionalism in that situation?
Well, I think that that's really just the key of it. You have to be professional. I mean, you can't lose your temper. You can't be dogmatic about something. You still have to be a nice person. You have to have a smile on your face, while you explain something to them. The second you
Yeah.
start to get a snarky attitude, you lose a client, and
Mhm.
potentially, depending on what kind of client it is, if it's a commercial business, maybe you have a little bit more leeway because you're dealing with just an employee or
Right.
possibly, just a manager of a small business or whatever. But if it's a residential client, that can be a bigger deal because I would say probably 80% of my business is word of mouth. So
Oh,
if
okay.
I was to mess something up with a
Yeah.
residential client, um, that could have ramifications later on, So sometimes you need to be able to put your foot down, and other times you need to just be like, okay, and go a little extra mile and help please a certain customer if
Yeah.
it means more business, if that's what you're at.
Right. Like,
Uh,
for instance, if it's like an older couple or something, and they're like, "Hey, can you change the light bulb for me?" Like I'm fine with that. That's not a big deal. But if
yeah,
like
sure.
if I have to do roof work for whatever reason, and I'm up there, and they're like, "Hey, while you're up there, can you do the skylights too?" That's kind of different. You know?
Well, yeah, I mean, you definitely need to. I would charge for the skylights, but I can't tell you how many situations I've been in where you go a little extra step for like just like you're saying, an older couple. Hey, I need my while you've got your ladders out, can you do this for me? And most of the time they'll even offer to pay you for it. Of course, I guess that varies, on who you are, but
Mhm.
usually I'm fine with just
But
changing it for them. It's not a big deal.
so you said that 80% of your business is word of mouth. So does that mean that you
Yeah.
don't do any kind of online marketing or anything like that?
Uh, Online marketing has its place. So my current business right now is 3 years old. I made it over the dreaded 2 year mark that most businesses crash and burn at. Um,
And what a year.
yeah, yeah. This has been surprisingly, 2020 has been a huge year for me.
Yeah.
I've talked to a lot of people that I think they're all stuck at home and they want work done. So
Y-
it's been nice that way.
you said you were talking about like the differences between commercial and residential where you might get, because it is the homeowner and you're working at their house, you might run into more picky situations where
Right.
they're following you around, watching you do every window. And then in a commercial uh, job, like if it's a large commercial, probably no one's following you around. And if it's a small commercial, you're probably just dealing with the employees. So like our business models kind of differ a little bit. Like I've really leaned into the commercial side, and that is a big reason why. Is it's not that I can't talk to people or I don't know how to do it. I just personally find it's just a lot easier. It's just like less stress for me to
And
go do the commercial
yeah.
jobs.
Well, see, I'm exact opposite. I've leaned heavily into residential. So I probably, no joke, 98% of my business is residential. I have I do have a few commercial jobs, but they're very few and far between, and I find that I just don't have the time to have a commercial route. Um,
Wow.
I'm having difficulty even getting to my commercial jobs because I have so much residential to handle right now. But
Sounds like a good
kind of back
problem to
to
have.
well, right, yeah, it is good. Not bragging, it's just the way this year's turned out. But uh, go back to your point on marketing. Um, when I first started my current business, Clearview Window Cleaning, when I first started it, I think I focused heavily on Facebook ads, trying to market towards people. I went to the local newspaper because I was trying to get a certain demographic of client because I wanted to focus on residential. So
Right.
I was looking for the people who read newspapers right now. That's the older demographic that
Just like you.
that wants their stuff done, right? Yeah, just like me. uh, but yeah, so I focused on that. I did kind of what I really like to do, and I think the thing that gives me the most success with getting new customers is instead of online marketing. This is just for me personally, but instead of online marketing, I actually canvas, or at least my first year and a half, 2 years, I would go around neighborhoods and I would put my card in their door, and I would knock, and if
Right.
no one came to the door, I'd just leave my card. I can't tell you how many times 6 months, 8 months later, I would get a phone call. Hey, I got my, just got to my lake house and I have found your card in you must have been here. And I was like, yeah, 8 months ago. It's like, yeah, I'd like to do it, and so most of my work actually came from actually putting cards in people's doors. And
Wow.
once that happened, and once you do a good job, you go the extra mile. If you're cordial, you get word of mouth. And
Right.
so a lot of my business came from meeting people. That's like the number one thing that I would recommend to people is, of course, this is a terrible year to be
Yeah,
meeting
this
people.
is
You're not going to be shaking their hands this year, but um, I think that like face to face, letting them know who you are. If you're interested in residential work, it's important that people get the sense of community out of you. You know, People
right.
will say, "Well, are you local?" I'll be like, "Well, I'm about an hour away." But if you make this connection with people, an hour away suddenly isn't that big of a deal to them. Whereas if they were just looking for a window cleaner online, they'd say, "Oh, here's Joe Schmo. He's an hour away," or how about this guy that's right in our
Right.
town? So
Right.
it's like
And you
I think that's
probably
been the most successful.
like with us, um, when we started out, I kind of feel like I made a blunder. I had the chance to purchase like a 1-800 number, and that probably would have been really good for going after commercial accounts. But since I have like a local number and we travel like an hour and a half radius, so like super far,
Yeah.
and we're in a tri-state area, so there's Indiana, Kentucky, and Tennessee.
Hmm.
Um, it's really hard because like I'm using a local number and I call a large business or something like that, and I'm not probably, they think I'm like a scammer or something, right? And if I go after the residential, in Indiana, um, they 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 think that for whatever reason, because I'm not local, I'm going to charge them too much, And
Yeah.
so, and it's like you said, community. It's all about building that trust. So it is so like in your market, do you travel a large distance to get to your work? Because we do.
Yeah. I actually, um, well, of course, I think you're similar with me in the fact that you give free estimates. So a lot of the times when I'm traveling, I'm not even getting paid for it.
Yeah,
So you kind of try to land the job when you get there,
right.
for
And I
the
will say
most part.
something that's interesting about that. Not to cut you off. I'm being a
No,
type
go
of
ahead.
interviewer right now, but when you're building your price for your window or whatever it is, you need, a lot of times people, they might have this perception like we're getting paid too much because our profession for whatever reason isn't worth what a lot of people charge. But if you think
Yeah.
about like what you just said, the free estimates and the drive time, that's non-billable hours. So you
Yeah,
have
there's a
to
lot of that.
there's a lot of, and you have to build into your price enough to compensate for that time you're not making money. But I didn't mean to cut you off. I just thought that was
No,
kind
that's
of an
fine.
interesting
No,
thing.
I'll travel an hour one way to get to a job. Sometimes I don't have to go too far, but about an hour and 20 is about kind of my stretch limit there.
Oh,
Um, but
felt
I
like
don't I don't really go beyond an hour most of the time.
yeah,
But I'd say I'm probably right where I'm located. I can go right into Tennessee, and Clarksville is an hour from me, certain parts of it. Not that I really go to that spot very often at all, but that's probably the furthest I would go. Maybe Nashville if it was a good enough job.
right.
I'd be willing to go 2 hours if it's a good enough job. But most
Wow.
of the time, I'll go about an hour. Yeah,
I get so
great.
jealous of people that, they're like 30 minutes to their jobs,
Oh yeah,
like I would love that. The drive
yeah.
time kind of it wears on me.
Well, I'm dealing with a lot of the lake areas, so it's always even if the job is in Murray, but it's near the lake. That's easily 35 minutes from my house. So
Right.
it's just part of it, I guess.
So, you had mentioned before that this is actually, Clearview is actually your second window cleaning business, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So
It's
your first one,
well,
you sold it. Why did you end up selling your first business?
so I'm trying to remember where I was at that point. I had subcontracted for your dad for several years. Um, I moved to Paducah when I was younger. I was probably 21 when I moved to Paducah, and I was still subcontracting window cleaning, but I ended up working at FedEx. So I would work at FedEx in the shipping department in the early morning from like oh gosh, what was it? It was like I would go in at 9 o'clock, 9 p.m. or something, 10 p.m., and then
Oh,
I would work till 2 a.m., 3 a.m., sometimes 5,
right.
and go home, shower, put on a belt, and go clean windows, for the day. And so like I was kind of doing both, but I was working my way to a driver position at FedEx, and I got that actually. I think it's kind of weird that we grew up cleaning windows, and I think
We
we had a
we grew up together,
yeah,
like cleaning windows, like cleaning them together.
yeah, we really did. So um, even when I was a really young kid, I would go with your dad to work occasionally. He would take me to go do some of the dealerships and things like that. So yeah, we really grew up cleaning windows, um, but I got that job working at FedEx in Evansville as a driver. So I moved to Evansville, Indiana, and drove for about a year and absolutely hated it. Like, couldn't stand that job at all. It's one of the few jobs that I've just been like, oh, I don't ever want to do this again. So I came back and started cleaning windows again.
So
I
so
moved,
you were subcontracting. You didn't own your business yet,
not that point, no.
but then you became a driver and moved to
Yep.
Indiana, and then now you've quit and you moved back.
Right. Yeah. So I moved back and started cleaning windows again. And when I got married, uh, which was 8 years ago, about 10 years ago, I moved to Murray. So I went from Paducah to Evansville to Marion, Kentucky, to Murray, Kentucky, about 10 years ago now, almost 11 years ago. It's crazy how time goes. But
Mhm.
started cleaning windows again and subcontracting for your dad. And there was another friend who had got his start subcontracting for your dad, who had his own business. Your dad was like the godfather of all of these, window cleaners
Yeah,
in
I
the
know.
area.
Crazy.
We all have our roots that trace back to him.
Basically,
Uh,
Dad was basically in Western Kentucky in our little area was basically the original guy, and he brought on
Yeah.
all these subcontractors, and then they all went out and started their own businesses. So
Yeah.
most of
Like
the businesses in our area,
1987. Yeah.
something like
Is
that.
that something
Yeah.
like that? Yeah. So, yeah. So we all have our roots that go back to your dad. Um, but he had a business and he was moving to South Carolina. So he contacted me and was like, "Hey, I'm going to sell you, if you're interested, I'm going to sell you my route." It was all commercial work for the
Mm.
most part, very little residential. But I was like, "Yeah, I'm definitely interested. I'd like to have my own business." Um, so what he did, and it kind of, hamstrung me a little bit. What he did is he split it up. He sold half of his business to me and half of it to your dad. So I
Mm.
had half the work that I thought I was going to be getting. So
Okay.
I had my own business, and then get this, I was still subcontracting for your dad. So I would be working for your dad, which wasn't a bad thing.
Yeah.
Your family was very generous in letting me do that. Um, but they told me one of the stipulations was I need to wear their shirt when I'm doing their jobs. I'll wear my shirt when I'm doing mine. But what happens, and this, people that walk up to you,
Yeah.
if I was in their shirt, that was their job.
Right.
So it was hard to grow a business and also, subcontract at
And
the same time.
and it's something that I've talked about before, is one of the things that I've learned from my family's business that I think is a failure is, for a long time they didn't have any employees. Everybody was a 1099 subcontractor,
Right.
and they were wearing our shirts, driving our vehicles sometimes, using our tools, but then technically they're supposed to be their own business, you know?
Right.
And then,
Yeah.
and that's a lot of the reason why these people did branch off and make their own businesses, because eventually they were like,
Well,
hey,
we
why
were
not?
trained to.
Yeah.
That was all that's all that did was train us to have our own business.
And that's
Uh,
kind of, my dad was real generous, and he kind of,
yeah,
he knew it was better for people to work for themselves. And
right.
I think that that's what he actually wanted.
Well, they encouraged it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he didn't want this like empire thing. And
right.
so like he would actually encourage that, which a lot of people would think totally the opposite, but that was my dad. That's just my dad.
That was his thinking. Yeah, and it honestly, I mean, it's not like it hadn't worked out for people. Most of the people I know that clean windows had their start from your dad and have successful businesses. So, and his business is still out there. So it's like it's not like it really hurt anything.
There's work to go around,
There's
basically.
work to go around. Yeah, there's plenty of. There's no need to be territorial. There's so much. There's so much work. You're an hour away from me, roughly,
Yeah, our
and
fields overlap, and I
overlap,
basically
and
never
we're
see you.
so busy. Yeah, yeah. It's and then I know probably 3 or 4 other window cleaners in the area that I never see them either. We're all so busy. So it's there's plenty of work to go around, like you said. But going back to that, I ended up selling my side of the business back to your parents. So it's like I went from having my business and subcontracting to them to then just selling them half, the rest of that, well, to the new owners. And then I worked for them as an employee for a little bit. You know, at that time, I'm trying to think, was I an employee? Yeah, I was an employee at that time after I sold the other part of the business to them. And
Eventually
so,
we did learn.
yeah,
We were
you
all
made some
in, yeah.
changes. Yeah.
So
So that, I mean, it made it difficult to grow a business and to also subcontract for someone else.
like,
It's
well,
really,
long
it's
term,
really difficult.
like
And
I do think the subcontractor relationship can be a really nice thing, and it could be a great relationship, but it has to
yeah,
be the actual relationship of a subcontractor. You can't just
temporary.
be acting as an employer employee, but with
Yep.
subs. Like, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah. Well, eventually, you have to go your own way at that point. You can't just indefinitely be a subcontractor. And there's so much more potential for growth if you could just learn a couple lessons and apply them. And I think at that time I hadn't learned certain lessons yet. One of the biggest ones that I was a huge failure on my part was I was just not motivated. Like, I could do the work. I was
Right.
pretty good at cleaning windows, but I just wasn't motivated to go out and get more work, and
Yeah.
just,
Well,
I
you
didn't
weren't
have that
married
work
either,
ethic.
right?
Huh?
Were
Say
you
what?
married at that time?
Not yet.
Okay.
So,
A lot of time
I was,
motivation, like
yeah,
why am I doing this?
exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, I think I didn't quite have that work ethic, that drive that I definitely have now. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's the complete difference between having my business before and having it now.
Mm-hmm.
I could have had it back then, but I was also younger, and like our work ethic when we were first starting was poor,
It's really bad.
we were we would shirk work to go skateboard, so
Yeah, that
you
was
know
really bad. Or like go watch movies, or
yeah,
we're like, oh man, we're right next to the house. Let's go play video games, or I mean, it was horrible.
yeah, we did that on more than one occasion, so
Yeah, like the
all
entire like
the
time we
time.
were teenagers, it was
Yeah,
horrible.
we were teenagers. We didn't have that work ethic. So yeah, I was in my early 20s when I had my first business. Um, so I hadn't really learned the lessons that I needed to learn that I definitely got. These last 3 years have been great for like developing a work ethic and being more organized. And so
So
a
you
huge difference.
so you've both bought and sold businesses.
Yeah, completely stupid. Don't do that.
What part of it?
Buying or selling businesses. Unless they're contractual businesses, I'm totally against it.
So because otherwise you're just selling like a client list, right?
A client list, that's all you're doing. Let's say the route I bought from that guy, I could have, if I was so inclined to, went to those businesses and got them on my own.
Yeah.
And he would have lost his clients and would have nothing to sell to me, right? So that just shows it was just a piece of paper at that point. It was just a transitional piece of paper. So if it was contractual, if there were clients that were like, hey, I'm contracted by this company for the next 5 years, that's something tangible. If you're going to sell that, that's more tangible. So I'm definitely against it. Not saying that that's what I would, because I didn't do that. I've never gone after someone's work, but people can, and so you have to be careful for that. That can be a tough lesson to learn, because I've seen it happen. So it's, you have to be careful.
Right.
I guess.
That's interesting. I agree with you that it's not a sure guarantee to buy your work or even sell your work. Because once you sell it, depending on how it's sold, you could really get stiffed on the purchase.
Right.
And it
Well,
could be the other way too.
they could say, hey, I'm gonna sell you this route list, and then another window cleaner comes in and takes all your work. So then you just bought a route list that
Yeah.
some other guy just came in and took, because they were like, we're gonna go with this guy instead. So it's like, I'm not saying it can't work out. It did work out in my instance. I bought a route from him. He got paid. I sold her out. They got paid. Um, so I've done both.
Yeah.
But as I've gotten older, that's one of the things that I'm like, I don't really think that's a great idea. It can work in certain circumstances. I'm not saying I'm totally against it, but I'm not inclined to do that. Let's
Yeah.
just put it that way at
I
this point.
kind of like an end game kind of thing. Uh, I've talked before about like retirement. I don't really see myself having the typical retirement, where it's like I get to like 65 and, then I just golf, put out to pasture kind of thing, not that if anyone's that age listening to this, they're put out to pasture, but you stop working completely. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't personally see that for myself. But at the same time, one thing that you said is contractual clients. I am trying to develop um, with my clients contracts with some of these commercial
And
accounts.
that's smart.
It's
Yep.
really hard to do that with residential. I mean, you might get service agreements, which we've done that too,
Exactly.
but actual contracts with the commercial stuff, we have done that. And as I think our business will last for hopefully the next few decades. hopefully that list will continue to grow and will be valuable, make the business more valuable.
And that's just the market that's the difference between the market you're in and the market I'm in, because you're going for commercial. So you're going to get those contracts with those companies that, well, too, you're also going to probably go for bigger commercial jobs, right? You're for the most part, you would like a bigger client,
Right.
so a contract makes sense. They're
Still
going to probably,
within our range of what we can handle, but yes.
right, yeah. See, residential, it is harder to get them to do a contract. And in fact, I wouldn't even bring up a contract with them because, there's agreements, like you said. We have some, which, again, learning some business stuff for myself is not, I wouldn't do it this way anymore. If a residential client asks you, what if we get done 3 times a year? Can we lower the price a bit? Previous years I've said yes, that's great. There was one lake house job that was going to get done twice a year, every year, and I lowered the price by a certain percentage for that. Well, this year they got done once. Last year they got done once.
Yeah.
So I did it for a cheaper price because things kept coming up, and I'm not saying that that's going to happen every time, but that's a lesson that you learn.
Yeah.
You're not going to get those kind of contractual agreements between someone. So right. It's probably best not to do that for the most part, at least in my experience.
I imagine in maybe larger markets, like maybe like out in California or someplace like that, where you're dealing with property management companies. I imagine that might be something that would actually happen, is contracts, because you're not dealing with the homeowner, you're dealing with the property management company. So I imagine that might be
even a place like in Nashville. You're going to get bigger houses in Nashville, celebrities even. There's quite a few celebrities that live there. You're going to get property managers, and if you're going to do that job, I'm sure there's all kinds of NDAs and things like that you'd have to sign, but you're going to sign a contract.
There's always, and you know what, like sometimes the word contract can scare people away. And like, what's the difference between the contract and an agreement is you're supposed to be able to enforce the contract. But, my thoughts on that is the client is going to do whatever they're going to do, even if there's a contract. And it's really bad business to sue your clients in order to get that money back. Like, it would have to be a substantial amount owed before I would even consider doing that, because that's, you talked about word getting around. If word got around that you're going to sue your clients,
you just shot yourself in the foot.
You shot yourself in the foot.
But that illustrates the dangers of, and I'm not saying it like if someone out there is listening and they just bought a route or they're considering selling it, do what you're going to do. But the dangers are there of doing that and not having a way to back it up. So you buy a route and then some guy comes in and undercuts your whole business,
Yeah. One of the things I think is probably the safest way to purchase a client list is don't pay for it all at once. Pay as you go, a percentage. Even if you're doing, and sometimes people will like 25% of the annual gross. Still, don't pay that all at once, because you might lose those clients along the way. So just continue to pay on that until it's all done. Because if they drop off, that should be written into your purchase, is that you don't pay for stuff you're not even doing.
Don't pay for potential leads.
Yeah.
That's nonsense. That may never come out. I've seen people try to do that.
Are you talking about some of these services that try to sell you leads?
I'm saying if you bought from another window cleaner and he's like, well, there's the potential to get these guys, no, don't do that. That's shooting yourself in the foot too. Yeah, definitely. If you're going to buy it in installments. For the most part though, I mean, people are pretty loyal. So if you're going to buy a route, you're going to end up going with the person that owns it to all these jobs, and they're going to introduce you. And people are, as long as they can see you and you get that sense of community and that they can see your face and they trust you,
or if there's
they're going to stay with you.
Or if they have employees and they're kind of like too large to do that, to personally go, just like a letter, something,
Right.
and then have them sign it, and then have them scan that and actually send it to their customers. That can go, because I did a deal like that, and that went a really long way. In fact, we didn't lose any of the customers when they transitioned over because that
Oh,
letter
great.
was there.
Yeah. Hey, it may
Um,
work for you. I just there's danger out there too.
yeah.
Look for the danger.
So, um, so now, like with me and my wife, we actually own the business and run the business together, and we kind
Mhm.
of have our defined roles. She does what I'm not good at, and I do what she's not good at, or doesn't have the ability to do, because I've been in the industry basically my entire life.
Right.
So with your wife, do you guys work the business together?
Occasionally, she worked with me for about a year straight. So she learned how to clean windows good enough that I don't have to go back, which as a business owner, that's a godsend when you don't have to go back on your workers' work. So you can trust them to do it right, which so that's great. That takes a lot of stress off me. But um, she went from working with me to eventually having her own cleaning business,
Oh,
housekeeping
wow.
business. So she transitioned from cleaning windows to cleaning houses, and that's actually been really good for her. I'll still drag her to work when I have a big job. I'll plead with her, and she's nice enough to help me out on some of these bigger
Do the
residential
same thing
jobs.
too.
But yeah, um, but yeah, she's got her own housekeeping thing, and just recently this year, she used my business because my business and insurance is pretty established now. So she used my name to get some bigger commercial accounts
Oh, wow.
that she was able to do and subcontract from me basically.
Oh, okay.
So she had her own business and also subcontracted under Clearview, and it turned out really well. I mean, she landed some really big clients, and it was great. So she
Congratulations.
does that. Yeah, thanks. She does that twice a year for those clients, and then she still has her own business. So it's going pretty good. As far as we've got the cleaning industry covered at this point. You know, I'll do the windows. She does everything else. So,
Do
but
you do anything other than window cleaning, like pressure washing or any other add-on services?
oh yeah, pressure washing is maybe the second biggest thing I do for the company.
Mm.
For my company, also gutter cleaning. That's a big one. If you're going to do residential work, factor in to do gutter cleaning at
Oh,
least for your first few years. If you
I
want to
hate
grow your business, that's like in this area, that's like the number one
Yeah,
thing in the
it's
fall.
unavoidable.
It's unavoidable. Just put in the work. Eventually, if you do things right, you'll grow enough that maybe you don't have to do gutter cleaning in the future. But um, gutter whitening is another thing.
Yeah,
Soft cleaning. We can do that.
soft
So
washes and stuff like that.
yeah,
All those things. A lot of times, I don't. I mean, if you're in the industry, you know how much money you can make in those things, those fields, but you can make a whole lot off of gutter cleaning, and I mean, I'm not gonna say it's easy, but it's not rocket science, And
right,
a lot of times people charge per linear foot. You can make quite a bit off that. Gutter whitening, you have to be careful because the chemicals that you use can ruin concrete. At least the chemicals that we use. But man,
hmm
you can make a lot off of that too. An add-on that I personally never did for my family's business that I do for myself now that I'm really surprised about how good it is screen repair. So
oh yeah. I
I've
also,
seen,
offer that as well.
yeah,
Um,
add-ons are
that's
sweet.
it's like small stuff like that really save your business in the harder times.
Yeah.
Because as certain months approach, your work may get leaner. At least for me, I focus primarily on residential, so there's a couple months where it leans out, and really those things, screen repair, and cleaning, gutter whitening, that kind of stuff really helps pull you along to
Yeah.
get back to those meatier months. So um, it's funny you mentioned gutter cleaning. is I just discovered some new chemicals that will do the same thing. Maybe takes a little bit longer, but it doesn't, because you're talking about F-13, the gutter grenade,
Gutter grenade, yeah.
yeah, that'll leave concrete orange
Yeah, you have
and
to
red
rinse
and
it.
stuff.
It's
Yeah, you have to keep everything. It'll kill plants.
everything wet. Oh
It'll
yeah,
take paints off.
yeah.
But
It's serious
there's
stuff.
new tools. There's new tools you can get on window cleaning resource and also ABC window cleaning supplies, things like that. The marks off. It's basically, I think, like
Oh
if
yeah.
I'm looking at it correctly, it's like a magic eraser is what it reminds me of.
It's
Maybe
what
a
it
little
is.
different.
Um, what it is it's a pad that is the shape of the gutter. And so,
Oh,
like
cool.
if you're using a brush, sometimes you got to twist the brush and do different angles to make sure you hit all of the different crevices of the gutter. But the marks off is pretty sweet because, like, literally one pass, you're getting the bottom of the gutter, you're getting the rounded part, and it curves in all the way up to the top. You're getting the whole thing with one pass. So,
Huh.
like, it's really, I mean, I think it like doubles your time. Like, not trying to do
Well,
a plug here for the marks off, but I
yeah, you're
like it.
getting paid under the table here.
Yeah.
That stuff works good. Well, I heard it works good. I haven't tried it like you have, but also Simply Green, you can spray that on there, and it actually will do it, and it's safer to use on concrete and things like that. So
There's a lot of different
um,
products out there.
a lot of different products, yeah. But those particular business ideas really will save your business in leaner months for sure.
Yeah.
So especially when you're first starting off.
Yeah, and we didn't. I mean, we had stuff like the gutter cleaning and the gutter whitening starting off, but like our main sellers were just window cleaning because this is we're not even 3 years into business ourselves, and I think it was this year I started doing the screen repair, and it's kind of, I won't say it's like gone crazy, like that's our number one thing or anything like that, but it's been really good, and what we can make per hour doing it is kind of
Yeah.
crazy, and it's
Yeah,
awesome. It's not super difficult.
yeah, it's things that don't take a whole lot of time to learn. So yeah, that's good.
So one of the things that I know about you is that you like to listen uh, to audiobooks while you work. Is that something that kind of like helps you manage stress or just keeps you not being bored?
Yeah, audiobooks, podcasts, things like that. I find because I've always had a big fear of heights. I don't like to get on ladders.
Right.
Uh, but on my truck right now, I have a 32-foot ladder and a 28-foot ladder, so I have to do it anyway. I've done a lot of gutter cleaning that's 30 feet up. Where I've had to be, in situations where I'm pretty high up. I count that as pretty high up. Maybe some people don't, but
Well,
I'm not a skyrise window
you're
cleaner or
not
anything
you're
like
not
that.
usually you're not tied off on a ladder, so it doesn't, to me it doesn't matter if you're like 10 feet up,
Yeah, that's
like,
true.
I mean, I might not be shaking while I'm up there, but like the danger is, you know at a similar level as being 30 feet up.
Yeah, that's true. That's definitely true. But my point to that is, like, if I don't listen to something, I get into my head when I'm climbing a ladder. So I find that when I work and listen to something, it's just enough of a distraction that I don't think about heights at all. So I'll end up climbing all over 30 feet, doing windows and stuff, 3 levels, and I don't think about it. And I think that really has helped me to kind of mitigate my fear of heights quite a bit. But
Right.
also, it's also the other side of it is I really enjoy listening to audiobooks and podcasts, and it kind of, window cleaning is monotonous.
Right. Right.
Especially I feel like commercial is especially monotonous.
Yeah.
So it's
Part of the
you
reason why I
know
like it's a little bit easier. There's not as many twists and turns throughout the day.
yeah, exactly. But you know that plays on your brain. By the end of the day, you're kind of tired, and mentally you're just exhausted as well. So I think listening to stuff passes the time like so well, and you'll be done with the job. Sometimes they'll slow you down though. So there's that there's that bit of caution.
You think there's a safety aspect, or especially a safety aspect, like if you're distracted while you're working, you know what I mean? Like how do you maintain your high level of safety? Because I know that's something important to you. I mean, you
Yeah,
know about.
I think you gotta not listen to something so loud, right?
Oh,
So
okay.
for me, if I have both of my earbuds in, um, I turn the volume down so I can still hear the client if they're speaking to me, or I can hear things that are around me. Now, I'm not in a situation where I'm going to get hit by a car, if I'm at somebody's house. But if you're doing commercial work, that could be a safety hazard, or someone could be walking by and you could be hitting them or whatever. So yeah, you need to be a little less distracted when
Right.
you're listening to something, not maybe so invested in it
I,
that you tune everything out.
I just
So
want to make sure the listeners know that I'm not advocating being distracted while doing dangerous things.
yeah, yeah. Well, what works for me probably isn't going to
Right.
work for everybody.
I know that you've been in the industry for 14 years, and you've seen what can happen. The dangers of the industry.
Well, your
Uh,
dad, you know,
exactly.
your dad's accident plays in my mind every time I get on the ladder.
Mm.
So, and I'm sure it does for you as well. So
Yeah.
that can happen to anybody. For anyone listening that doesn't understand, your dad was paralyzed because of an accident. So falling off a ladder. So yeah, you don't go on a 32-foot ladder so distracted that you do something stupid.
Like head banging,
That's
to like metal music.
or overreaching. Like if you're gutter cleaning, don't get on one foot on one rung and reach
Yeah,
over. Just don't do that kind of stuff. But that's not the point I'm trying to make. It helps
I know.
mitigate the fear of heights
Right.
for me, but
I
don't
know.
distract yourself and be unsafe. Don't
Right.
practice unsafe work.
Right.
But
So, when you listen to audiobooks, are you listening to like business stuff? Like Profit First is one that people recommend often, or are you listening to other things?
other things, I try to keep it light-hearted. uh I have some friends that are in the construction business. He has his own construction company. He always sends me links for business podcasts, and they're interesting, but for me, that's not the right setting. Like I need to pass the time. And so like I listen to like well, just to be a complete nerd, I listen to fantasy books and things like that, comedy podcasts and things like, I enjoy that kind of stuff. So that's what I end up listening to.
Is there I think we have a pretty wide, diverse range of people that listen. Is there anything that you'd recommend we try out?
Oh man. Well, I use the Hoopla app, which is the app that you get at a library. So you can download audiobooks and ebooks and stuff to your phone using your library card account. Um, but yeah, there's some oh man, there's some good sci-fi fantasy books that you got me on the spot now. Trying to think of the names of them.
All your
Peter
fluff.
F. Hamilton. He's a sci-fi writer that he has a lot of really good. Uh, see if I can find one real quick. Yeah, Peter F. Hamilton, Pandora's Star. If you're looking for an interesting sci-fi book, that's a great place to start.
Cool.
So, yeah, I listen to that, and a lot of podcasts, a lot of comedy podcasts, um, which you can find on any of your podcast apps. So,
Cool. Okay. Last set of questions here.
sure.
Um, it sounds like you've done a lot of learning throughout your business, a lot of failures, a lot of successes, different things have happened. Somebody starting out, what is some of the best advice you would give to somebody starting out? And then also to follow up with that, what would you do differently if you were to do it all over again?
Uh, well, I guess I've been cleaning windows off and on for 13, almost 14 years now. There's stuff you're always going to learn. This is the third year of my business. That's not a whole lot of years. I recognize that. So I'm learning things, and maybe 5 years from now, I'm going to learn things that I'll look back on and be like, wow, I can't believe I did that. That was stupid. But I think starting out for your new business, maybe one of the most important things that you can do is just be friendly, be personable, be a nice person, because people respond to that. It doesn't matter if you're doing commercial work, if you're doing residential work, be nice, be a friendly person. That goes so much further than anything else, than just having a really good price. That might get you your foot in the door, but
Yeah.
being a nice person gets you more work. So I think that is probably the most important thing. The other thing is to hustle. I mean, if you want to grow your business, you got to put in the legwork, and that's probably something I did not do when I was first starting out. I mean, we talked about it. We skateboarded, we played video games. We were terrible.
I know, right?
Even when I had my first business, I didn't hustle like I should have. And, had I hustled, I wouldn't have had to sell the business. I wouldn't have failed. I would have eventually stopped subcontracting and would have been able to focus all my time. But that's a lesson I've learned now. And so hustle, be friendly, be personable. Charisma goes a long way in this industry.
One thing that I've heard recently is, you said that you failed in your business, but one thing I've heard recently is you're only a failure when you blame somebody else.
Yeah.
So
Well,
there's something to be said from that. And also, you learn more from your failures than you do your successes.
right. And that's something you have to understand too, and that you have to be willing to accept, is that you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. In this business, you may make really good money on one job and make not as good money on your next job. That doesn't mean you should quit. It just means, you need to be able to roll with that and learn from that experience. If I had to do stuff differently, it'd probably be how I focused my attention on getting customers. The way I've always kind of done it is, I like to drop my card off and meet people face to face, and that does go really well. That goes really far. Gives you that sense of community, passes your name around. That's great. But to get started, you kind of need more than that. You need to market yourself a little bit more, and that's something I didn't really do at first. I probably would have grown faster had I put more time and attention into marketing.
Right.
And there's a lot of resources to do that. Networking with other window cleaners helps. Networking is like a really good way to do it.
Are
But
you currently
also,
networking with other window cleaners?
oh yeah, I'm pretty good terms with most of them that are around here. They will give work to each other. I just had one guy that went out of business. He's going into real estate, and he just gave me all of his residential work.
Wow.
He just, I mean, every single day I have people calling saying he quit window cleaning and he told me to call you. So it's like, that's a, random, random thing to have happen. And I'm really grateful for that. That doesn't happen for everybody, and it doesn't, I get that. I understand that, but networking goes a long way too. You can pass work along to each other, and you can help yourself grow in that respect.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier, like online marketing. I think that's great. I think that's one of the things you do with your business much, much better than I do. Your Instagram ads and
That's
your Facebook.
basically all Lindsay. She takes care of that.
Well, it works, it looks professional, and it puts you out there. So I think that's probably what I would do differently if I had to start again. I would focus on marketing a lot better.
Just kind of modifying your marketing, because obviously it's working, but you would just basically add in a few different things.
Yeah, I went for a certain demographic, and I think that was good to an extent, but not everybody wants to just clean residential. There's most window cleaners will do both. They do commercial and residential.
Right.
They kind of equalize it out. And if you want to do commercial, I mean, you gotta let yourself know, be known in the area. So
you gotta have more visibility, basically.
Yeah, you don't need to pay for Google. You'll get those phone calls all the time. Ignore that. you, you need your listing on the top of the Google page.
Oh yeah.
Like, okay.
You found errors with your Google listing. You're like, yeah, right.
That's funny though. Like having a website's a really good idea. But I added a website later on in my business, and
Mhm.
I've gotten a lot of, I mean, it pays for itself with the work that you get from that. But try to get in, especially if you're doing commercial work and you're interested in that. Try to get in with construction cleanup projects like foreman's stuff. I have one guy in particular that I'll get a yearly call from him. Hey, we have this big project and we need the windows
Wow.
cleaned. So it's like get in with those kind of people, and it
Right.
pays off later on. So
Awesome.
that's what you got to do. At least that's what I did. I'm still here.
Sounds
So
good. Sounds like you've got something that's working for you.
yeah, it's it's still here. So at least
Yeah.
for this year, we'll see what next year brings. But it should be more of the same. I hope, maybe a little bit better. So
Cool.
each year has gotten progressively better. So
Yeah, it's
that's
funny too.
good.
This year's been a terrible year, but as far as business wise, I expected it to be. For us personally, it hasn't been great, but I expect it to be a lot worse. But I think
Yeah.
will make it. Well, David, thanks for taking some time out
Yeah.
and
Thanks, man.
talking with us. Thanks for sharing your stories and your tips and your tricks and all that stuff.
Yeah, if it helps somebody, that would be great.
Yeah,
Like I said, though, maybe not everything I said will work for you, or you may not
right.
agree with it exactly, but um, if it helps somebody, that would be great. So
Yep.
thanks for having me on.
Yep. It was a pleasure.
Thanks,
This
man.
is Joel with ITF, and we're signing out.